We live in a world that is full of mysteries, be that unsolved disappearances that are heartbreaking and need to be solved, or creatures that live in the unexplored areas of the planet. I have always delved into these cases and approached them with an open mind in an attempt to get everyone involved and get closer to the truth. So from one of Germany's most mysterious deaths that happened over 30 years ago but still has no leads, to an unidentified creature found in a toxic oil pit in Indiana, here are 5 unsolved mysteries that still need explaining. Hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. Yogtze Mystery. Now this is a strange one. It was brought to my attention by a viewer, and is one of the most mysterious unsolved cases in Germany. It starts with a person called Gunther Stoll, whose early life we know very little about. So the story starts in 1984, when Stoll finds himself unemployed with mounting money problems. It's thought he may have developed clinical paranoia and was convinced that he was being targeted by a sinister presence. He confided in his wife that he thought whatever it was intended to harm him. On the evening of October 25th, 1984, Stoll is at his house in Anhausen, Germany, when he suddenly jumps up from his chair and shouts, "Jetzt geht mir ein Lynch auf." Now I get it. He then grabs a piece of paper and writes down Yogtze, or Y06TZE. He crosses the message out, leaves the house, gets into his Volkswagen car, and drives to the town of Wilnsdorf to his favourite pub where he orders a beer. However, while in the bar, he inexplicably collapses on the floor and injures his face. Witnesses say that he was not drunk and had not even touched his beer. After getting to his feet, he left the pub and went missing for 2 hours before turning up at the home of one of his childhood friends at around 1 AM. The woman listened to his rambling about a horrible incident and then told him to go home to his wife. 2 hours later, 2 truck drivers spot a wrecked Volkswagen on the side of the road. They stop to check it out and discover Stoll's naked and bloodied body slumped in the passenger seat. He is still conscious and explains that he was beaten by 4 strangers who were travelling in the car with him. Shortly after, Stoll succumbs to his injuries and is pronounced dead before reaching the hospital. Police questioned the truck drivers, who told them that they saw another man in a white jacket fleeing the scene who appeared to be injured. It was established that Stoll was run over in a different location before being left in his vehicle to die. There are many theories on what happened to him and his mysterious death. Mainly, what did the message he wrote down mean, and does it have any link to his death? Was he suffering from some sort of loss of sanity and just wandering around naked and confused when he was struck by a vehicle, and then struggled back to his car? Did the mysterious presence he was convinced was following him finally catch up with him? And if so, who were they and why? The police remain convinced that Stoll's death was the result of a crime, although 33 years later, they still have no answers. Jennifer Fergate. On the 1st of June 1995, an elegantly dressed woman checked into the Oslo Plaza in Norway. She gave her name as Jennifer Fergate and gave a home address of Belgium. She reserved a room for herself and Louis Fergate, and she was allocated room 2805. Just after 7:30 PM on the 3rd of June, the receptionist at the hotel sent a message to the room, as the guest had exceeded their credit limit. The message appeared on the room's TV screen and simply read, "Please contact the cashier." Someone immediately acknowledged it by pressing OK on the remote control, but no contact was made. The receptionist became increasingly concerned that the couple had stayed 3 nights and not paid a penny for the expensive room, and a "Do Not Disturb" sign had been displayed on their door since their arrival. 25-year-old Espen was sent up to investigate, and when he knocked the door, he almost immediately heard a loud bang. Espen recognised it was a gunshot, and called the head of security, who, using his keycard, carefully unlocked the door. As he entered the room, he saw a young woman in an unnatural position on the bed, and the curtain was flapping. The TV was on, but the room was dark. The woman on the bed was obviously dead, staring at the ceiling with a gunshot wound to her forehead, and in her hand was a 9mm pistol. The police arrived, and suicide was immediately suspected. However, it seems there is more to this young woman's death than meets the eye. After a thorough investigation, it was discovered that Jennifer Fergate did not exist. Her address and phone number were false, as was the age she gave of 21, as it was nearer 35. All the clothes in her room had the labels removed, and an attaché case was found that contained only 25 gun cartridges. A further 9 cartridges were also found, 7 still in the gun, and 2 that were spent. The gun had the serial number etched off, and there was no passport, no wallet, no money, no credit card, no toiletries, no handbag, no driver's license or keys. Just an almost empty perfume bottle. Anything that could have identified the woman had been systematically removed. Her fingerprints also gave no matches in the Interpol database. The question was, had she done all this herself, or was someone else responsible, removing all identifying traces? A year after the discovery, the nameless woman was buried in an unmarked grave in Oslo. And to date, no one has come forward to identify her. Did someone kill her and place the weapon in her hand to make it look like a suicide? 2 shots were fired, one apparently a test shot that went through a pillow and mattress. This is a truly bizarre case. What do you think of it? Could it have been a murder or a suicide? Ursula and Sabina Eriksson. Ursula and Sabina Eriksson are identical twin sisters who were born and grew up in Sunne in western Sweden, and I've wanted to talk about this case for a while. As the girls grew up, they went their separate ways. Sabina lived in Ireland with her parents and 2 children, and Ursula lived in America. In May 2008, Ursula travelled to Ireland to meet up with her sister, and on May the 16th, the pair left Ireland and headed for London. When they reached Liverpool, they boarded a National Express bus, and the driver of the coach became concerned about the twins' erratic behaviour. As the coach stopped at Kiel Services, he refused to let them reboard, and the police were called. But after assessing the situation, they deemed they were harmless, and no further action was taken. The 2 women then inexplicably started to walk down the M6 motorway and attempt to cross it. The police and paramedics were called, and what happened next was truly bizarre. The 2 women then made numerous suicide attempts by running into oncoming traffic. Despite their odd behaviour, there was no evidence that either woman was under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and it's believed they were suffering from an episode of shared psychosis, a very rare disorder in which delusional beliefs are transmitted from one individual to another, known as folie à deux. After the incident, Ursula was taken to hospital with serious injuries, and she remained there for several weeks. But Sabina, who seemed the saner of the 2, was taken into police custody. She was sentenced to 1 day in jail for trespassing and assaulting a police officer, and on the 19th of May was released onto the streets of Stoke-on-Trent. Not long after, she befriended a local man called Glenn Hollingshead, who invited her to stay at his house. The next day, Sabina stabbed Hollingshead 5 times with a kitchen knife in an entirely unprovoked attack. Immediately after the murder, Sabina was seen hitting herself on the head with a hammer before jumping off a bridge. She survived the incident and was charged with murder, but pleaded guilty to manslaughter with diminished responsibility and was sentenced to 5 years. Sabina was deemed completely sane at her trial, although at the time of the killing was said to be the secondary sufferer of folie à deux, with her twin Ursula being the primary sufferer, and Sabina was influenced by the perceived presence of her sister who dictated her behaviour. Sabina was also suffering from a delusional disorder as well as voices in her head. Interestingly, throughout her hearing, Sabina offered no explanation for her actions and answered all questions with no comment. After the trial and sentencing, there seemed to be many unanswered questions about the true reasons for the twins' bizarre behaviour, and the senseless killing that followed. Of course, there has been conspiracy theories who have suggested the women were part of a government experiment that went wrong, especially since Sabina was incredibly paranoid, looking out of windows and carrying multiple mobile phones whilst at Glenn Hollingshead's house. After Sabina's release in 2011, It's believed she returned to Europe, possibly Norway, and Ursula to the US, and is now an active member of the Sacred Heart Church. Not a whole lot is now known about them, and it's not sure if they have since met up. Mysterious Intruder. Now this next story was sent to me by a viewer. It was caught on his security camera on June the 23rd, 2017, at his East LA home, and him and I do not really know what to make of it. One night, the CCTV footage caught a man opening the driveway gate at 4 AM. Now the strange thing about it, the camera is not motion activated and is a continuous video recorder. But the unidentified man just pops into view. A few seconds later, the person's dad pulls up in the car. Now it's most likely just a burglar, and when the dad asked what he was doing, he said he was looking for someone. The man has not been seen since, and of course it's possible there was just a glitch in the camera. But the owner said this seems unlikely, as it was in perfect working order at the time, and he has had no problems with it since. It's also pretty eerie that it could have been someone looking to break into the house, and had they have done that if the dad didn't pull up. If any of you have any ideas who this guy could have been, or an explanation for this sudden appearance, then the owner would be very grateful. Oil pit squid. Now this is an odd one, and seems to have been covered up and forgotten about. In March 1997, the Herald newspaper reported that a squid-like creature was discovered a few months back in a pit containing toxic chemicals at Plant 9 of Delphi Interior and Lighting. The plant was located in Anderson, Indiana, and was a subsidiary of General Motors. It claimed that in November 1996, when the pits were being cleaned, GM workers discovered what they described as squids that were the colour of earthworms. Apparently they had tentacles and eyes, and measured around 6 to 8 inches long. Normally, there would be nothing unusual about finding creatures in a pit, but this pit contained a mixture of oil, stripper and antifreeze, and it was a huge shock to the workers that anything could survive in such toxic chemicals, let alone be able to reproduce and move around in the sludge. One of the unknown creatures was captured and killed, and placed in a jar to be analysed. However, the sample apparently mysteriously disappeared before it could be studied. Officials from the plant confirmed something had been found in the pit, and that the sample had been stolen. Environmental officers concluded that the creature was harmless and could have been some kind of bacterial matter. So a creature of unknown origin and never seen on Earth before that could thrive and multiply in a substance that nothing could survive in was supposedly created in a mix of toxic waste. There has to be more to this. You would think scientists would be all over it. However, it seems to have been forgotten, and finding information on this incident apart from the initial couple of reports is virtually impossible. Surely we would need to know if there are creatures on the planet as large as 8 inches long that can survive in such extreme poisons. So that's 5 pretty creepy unsolved mysteries. I hope you've enjoyed, and if you have any answers or theories to any of these cases, then please leave a comment or a post over on the Top 5 Stories tab. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.